Welcome to channel Automation. In previous session, we have seen about before each and after each hook of Playwright. So there are mainly four type of hooks which are present: before each, after each, before all, and after all. Before each hook gets executed before every test. After each hook gets executed after each test. So in last session we have also seen a real-time example. We have used sourcedemo.com website. On that website we have created two test cases. First, without using before each and after each. If you see, this is our last session's lessons. So we have used, first we have created two test cases without using any before each and after each. So first test case was login to sourcedemo.com, verifying the product count is 6 and then performing logout. Test case 2 was login, adding a product in cart, verifying the success message and performing the logout. Then we have also seen how we can use before each and after each to reduce or reuse the code of two test cases. So what we have done, we have separated before each code and after each code. So in before each block, in before each hook, we have put the code of login, and in after each hook, we have put the code of logout. So whenever we executed this file, before every test case, before each block got executed, and after test case gets completed, after each block got executed. So in this scenario, before test case 1, before each block got executed, and after test case 1 finishes, logout gets executed. Again, before starting the test case 2, before each block gets executed, after completing the test case 2, after each block got executed. So if there are 5 test cases, 5 times before each block will execute and 5 times after each block also execute. So that was the concept of using before each and after each hooks. But what if I don't want to execute before each code every time for every test case? So my scenario now is, I want to log in only once, then perform all the test cases, and then perform logout only once. You got the point, right? So I don't want every time my test case should start with login, test case, and then logout. Again login, again test case, again logout. So I don't want to repeat login and logout multiple times. What I want to do is, let me just show you this example. So if I want to do like this, so my use case is now, I want to just log in at start of the test case execution. After login, execute the test case 1, execute the test case 2, and then once all the test cases are completed, after that only once I want to log out. So let's say there are 5 test cases, and for all 5 test cases I don't want to log in 5 times. I just want to make only a single session in which I have to log in only once, execute all the test cases one after other, and then after completing all the test cases, I want to log out once only. So that is my use case. So in such scenario, we can use before all and after all hooks. So in this case, we can use before all and after all hook. So before all hook will execute only once before starting all the test cases, and after all hook will get executed only once after finishing all the test cases. So if there are 5 test cases, or let's say there are 10 test cases, for all the test cases it will not perform login multiple times. It will log in only once, perform all the test cases, and it will log out only once. So that is the difference between before each and before all. So before each will execute before every test case, but before all will execute only once before all the test cases. So now we will practically see how we can use before all and after all in our same two test cases. So I want to do is, what I want to do, I want to log in only once. Once you start the browser session, you just have to log in once. Both the test cases should get executed, and then after executing all the test cases, we have to perform logout action. So by using before all and after all, we can achieve this specific scenario. So whenever, if you see which hook need to be used at what scenario. So we can use before each and after each when test should be isolated. If there are multiple test cases and you want to isolate all the test cases from each other, in that scenario we can use before each and after each. So in our last session we have seen the example in which before every test case we used to log in and we used to log out. So each test case was isolated from other test cases. But now the scenario is, by using before all and after all, we can set up should run only once for all the test cases. So only once it will perform the login. It will log in at the start, it will perform all the test cases, and then it will log out from all the test cases at once. So now we will use the same example. I will go to Visual Studio Code. So this was the code. If you remember, in our previous sessions we have created these two test cases. Now these test cases are without any before all and after all hook. So these test cases are not having any before all or after all hooks present in it. So what I will do is, I will just, or we can simply use our last session's code as well. So if you see, in our last session we have created before each and after each, but let's use this one only. I'm just copying this one. Let's copy this code, and without making changes in this code, I will create a new file. So now let's create a new test file. I will name it as before all underscore after all underscore demo.spec.js. In this I will paste all that code. So these are our two test cases which we have created in our previous session. First is to verify number of product to be 6, and another test case will verify the success message which we get after the checkout. So let me just show you one more time. So once you perform login, after login we are verifying if all these products count is 6 or not. If it is 6, then it will pass the test case. That is our first test case. And second test case is, we have to click on this add to cart button. Then we are going to this cart icon. We are clicking on checkout. We are filling all the details with some random data which we have used in our test script. After filling those details, let's say after filling those details, we are clicking on continue button, and then we are clicking on finish button, and here we are verifying that this message is successfully displayed or not. If it is matching with my expected output, then we are making the test case as passed. So these are the two test cases which we have already covered in our previous session. So if you haven't watched those sessions, I would request you to watch part 1 and part 2 of hooks session. So you will get more idea. So these are two test cases which we have used. Now these are without any before all and after all hook. Now I want to use before all and after all hook. So what I have to do is, let me write the code for that. I have to create the test block, test dot, we can use before all. In this we have to use async keyword. Along with async keyword, what we can do is, If you see in our previous sessions, whenever we have created test cases, we were passing page fixture in this. But now we have to pass a new fixture, that is browser fixture. Now why we are passing this browser fixture, that I will just explain in some time. But before that, let's create and complete this syntax. So I am creating a function, and this is our beforeAll block. So now let me just explain you why we are passing browser fixture and not the page fixture. Why we cannot pass page fixture in beforeAll hook, and we have to pass browser fixture in that. In Playwright, beforeAll and afterAll hooks operate at the test file level, and they don't have any access to page fixture, because beforeAll and afterAll run outside of the test context. BeforeAll and afterAll hooks executes before any test case starts. So before any test case actually starts, we have to execute the beforeAll hook, and afterAll will be finished after all the tests are finished in a test file. That's why beforeAll and afterAll run outside the test context. That's why we can't pass page fixture in that, because page fixture is created as per test case. So whenever we use test block in about the test case, in those test case block we can pass the page fixture. It is only available inside individual test or even hooks like before each and after each. So in our previous session where we have used before each and after each hook, in those hook also we can pass page fixture. But beforeAll and afterAll we cannot pass page fixture directly, because the page fixture requires a browser context, which is per test. So page fixture depends on the browser context, and Playwright runs each test in isolated browser context. And since beforeAll runs before the test execution starts, no browser context or page exists yet. So that's the reason we have to first pass the browser context, and then we can create a page as per our requirement. You cannot pass page fixture directly in beforeAll. So we can use the browser fixture in the beforeAll because it represents the global browser instance. And from the browser fixture, we can create own browser context, and we can create the page as well. So let me just show you practically also. So inside this beforeAll, we have to pass browser context. After passing this browser context, what we have to do? We have to open a browser context. We have to open a browser context. It's like a isolated session. So it's a totally separate isolated session. Since beforeAll executes outside of the test context, we cannot pass page fixture directly. We have to first pass browser context. We have to pass browser fixture. Then we can create the context. Let me just create the context as well. So I'm just creating the context equal to await. By using browser fixture, we can create a new context. So I'm just using browser.new context. And this context is created by using browser.new context. So now we have passed the browser fixture. We have created the context as well. Now we can open a new page. We can create a new page fixture inside this context. So now we can create a new page inside this context. Now for that, what is syntax now? We have to use page equal to await context dot new page. Context dot new page. But before that, we have to define one variable. Let's say let page at global level. So we have defined this page at global level. So what we can do is, now we can use this page fixture in every block now. So once you define this page inside this context, now we can use this page fixture. I will just write one console statement as well. Let's say console.log. Now we are currently in which block? We are currently running before all block. So it is the code which is present inside before all block. Now which it will run before all the test cases. So it will run before all test, but only once. It will run once before all the test. It will not execute for each and every test. It will run only once before all test execution starts. And what code we have to run here? So our use case is we have to perform login only once. So what I will do, we have to perform login action only once before all the test. So for that, what we can do, we can simply copy the code from remaining two test cases directly inside this before all block. So this login part, I am just copying this login part. Let's cut this part from the test case because we don't need inside the test case now. That part we are putting inside before all block. Let's save this file. So this is the code inside before all block. Let me just use tab so that you will get more readability here. Yeah, so I have just used tab now. So this is basically before all block. Now we don't have to write before all block code like login code inside the test case. So from here we have already removed the login code. Similarly from test case 2 also we have to remove this login code. We don't need in the test case now. So that was for before all. These are the two test cases now. And we can also write after all block. So test dot after all. Inside that we have to pass a async keyword, a function, and now we don't have to pass page fixture in all the blocks because we have already created a global fixture, that is page, which we can use directly inside the test. So we don't have to pass or create a new page inside this function now. So I will just use without any fixture here, and let's write after all block. So what is the action? What are the item we have to put in after all block? If you see this diagram, we have put login code inside before all block, and we have to put logout code inside after all block. So now let's copy and remove the code from test case about logout. So this is the logout part. I am just removing it from the test cases and putting it in after all block. So it will execute only once after both the test cases gets completed, and then we have to remove it from second test case as well. So we have removed from second test case also and put that logout code in after all block. So this is our test file now. So if you see this file, also one more change we have to do is we have created a global instance of page. So we have defined one context by using browser.newContext, and then we have created a new page by using context.newPage. We have defined the page here, and since we have defined the page here, we don't have to use inside this test now. So here we don't have to pass or create a new fixture here. In this function also we don't have to pass the page fixture, and also in last block, that is after all block, also we don't need to pass the page fixture here. So simply we can remove that from those part. This page is basically this page. So if we can define only once globally, and we can use this in all the test cases, we don't have to pass it here. We can use in all the tests now. So this is the code about before all and after all. So once you execute this file now, what will happen? At very first, which block will get executed? Before all block will be executed. In before all block, we have written the code of login. So it will launch the browser. It will create a new context. It will create a new page, isolated session, in which it will perform the login. So we will be logged in. After that, test case 1 will be executed. Immediately after test case 1, test case 2 will be executed. Without logout, one by one after other, all the tests will be executed. So test case 1 will execute, test case 2 will execute, and after finishing both the test cases, now at last afterAll block will execute. And in afterAll block, it will perform logout action. So login will happen only once, then it will run all the test cases, and then at the end it will perform the logout. If you see in our previous session where we have seen before each and after each, in that scenario, what was happening? Before every test case, login was performed. After every test case, logout used to happen. But in this scenario, in before all and after all, login will happen only once. It will perform all the tests, and then at the end logout will happen. So now what we will do? We will execute the test cases now. So let's execute this file. So let's go to terminal. Let's see whether it is able to execute in our expected manner or not. npx playwright test. What is the file name? beforeAll underscore afterAll underscore demo dot spec dot js hyphen hyphen headed hyphen hyphen project equal to chromium. So now let's execute this file. It will happen so fast, but let's pay attention. It should log in only once, perform both the test cases, and then log out only once. Now let's see the execution. It should start the test case now. It is starting the two test cases. It will launch the browser. It is launching the browser now. Something is wrong. Let's see what is the error now. Okay, so we had a very small syntax mistake. So if you see, when you create the context, browser dot new context, after that we have to put this brackets as well. So now let's save this file and again execute this file one more time. Now let's execute this file. So once you execute this file again, it should launch the browser. It should perform login only once as per the beforeAll block. Then it will perform test case 1. Then it will perform test case 2. And then it will execute afterAll block. That is logout. So now it is starting the test case. Just pay the attention. It is starting the test case now. It should launch the browser. After launching the browser, it will perform login action, but only once for all the test cases. Now it will perform login. Then it will perform first test case, second test case, and at the end logout. So it happened actually so fast. So what I will do, I will just add some timeout. Let's say after test case 1, I'm just adding some timeout. Await page dot wait for timeout. I'm just adding 4 seconds timeout here. And after performing second test case also, I'm just adding some extra timeout so that it will wait for 4 seconds and then it will perform logout action. So let's save this file and let's execute this test case one more time. Now if you see, it will launch the browser. It will log in only once at the start of all the test cases because we have put login code in the beforeAll block. Then it will perform first test case, second test case, and then it will perform logout only once. So it is starting the test case now. So it is launching the browser. It is performing the login. First test case got passed. Then immediately after first test case, it will perform second test case also. And then it will perform logout action only once. So we are able to execute both the test cases one after other. And after first test case execution, we did not perform logout. So in one session only, all the test cases got executed. So that is the use of beforeAll and afterAll hook. So this is the code. This is the code for using beforeAll and afterAll. So we have to use beforeAll hook. We have to pass browser context. Then we have to create the context. Then we have to create the page fixture. And using this page, we have defined here globally. And we can use this page everywhere. Then this is the test case 1. This is the test case 2. And this is afterAll block. So that is the use of, let me close this. So that is the use of beforeAll and afterAll. And we have also seen why we can't pass page fixture in beforeAll, because beforeAll and afterAll hooks operate at the test file level. So thank you for watching this video. So this is the overall example of using beforeAll and afterAll. Let me just maximize a bit. So this is the example code of using beforeAll and afterAll hooks. I hope you like this video and you have understood the different type of hooks like before each, after each, beforeAll and afterAll, and when to use which hook. If you see before each and after each hook, when we want to execute the test which are totally isolated, but time will be required more in such test cases. If you use before each and after each, it will be isolated test case execution. But by using beforeAll and afterAll, we can set up should run once. So if you have seen, login happened only once, and after that all the tests got executed one after other very quickly, and then logout will be performed only once after all the test case completed. So time will be required lesser than the previous approach, but it will totally depend on your approach, whether you want isolated test cases execution or you want to do setting up only once and then execute the test cases and then perform afterAll block. So depending on your use case, you can use different type of hooks. So thank you for watching this video. In coming session, we will see some more interesting topic of Playwright. Thank you again.